7:49 a.m. A second of silence, then the sound of iron clanging furiously. Glass shattered, dust rose into the air. The kindergarten was painted red with blood. A white sedan stopped. The man inside did not move. He only whispered, "They killed my son." This was not an accident. This was a silent sense of revenge that had been building up in a quiet man for years. Everyone knew that man. In the city, they called him the Gentle Father. A 32-year-old, quiet-natured man who didn't talk much. He would wake up early in the morning, take his son in his arms, and take him to the kindergarten. Neighbors said that when he talked to his child, it was as if all the sounds in the world fell silent for him. But one morning he returned home alone. That day, everything in the kindergarten had started out as normal. The teachers were drinking tea, the children were playing. Then he changed. At first, no one took him seriously. He must have run too far, they said. One of the teachers took the child into the room, laid him down, opened the window and said, "Let him get some air." Hours passed. No one called an ambulance. It was already too late when they arrived. The child's lips were blue, his eyes were open, but he had no vision. The doctor simply wrote, "Natural death." Right there, at that moment, something broke. In the days that followed, the man didn't say a word. He went to work, he came home, but it was as if the person inside him had disappeared. In the evenings, he would sit in front of the window and smoke. Every time the smoke rose, it was as if he was releasing the pain inside him into the air, but that pain didn't go away. When the neighbors saw him, they would lower their heads. Everyone knew, but no one said anything. The kindergarten administration tried to cover up the incident. They would say, yes, unfortunately, the child had health problems, but everyone knew it was a lie. A month later, he was no longer the same person. He didn't go to work. He decided to rearrange the things in the house. He took down the children's pictures from the wall, kept one of them, the one with his son smiling. He put it on the table and looked at it for days. Then the neighbors saw that he had sold his old car and bought a new one, a white sedan. He must have got a new job, they said. But it wasn't a job, it was a plan. All that time, no one noticed that he passed by the garden every morning. Every time he stopped, looking at the children playing inside. His hands on the steering wheel, his eyes frozen. Sometimes he would stop so long that the traffic police would come and say, "You can't park here." And he would start the car and drive away without moving his head. But there was something hidden in those looks. A silent plan. One night, the neighbors heard him burning something in the house. Then smoke rose from the window. But it wasn't a fire. He was burning the child's toys. The smell of plastic spread throughout the block. No one knocked on the door. Everyone was scared and hesitant. Then he suddenly closed all his social media accounts and changed his phone. That night, he looked at the child's photo for the last time. He ran his finger over the photo, whispering, "I'll save you tomorrow." The morning of April 8th. The air was strangely calm. He woke up early. He made coffee but didn't drink it. There was only a piece of paper on the table. A short, single sentence. "Sorry, but I have to do this myself." The camera footage shows him standing in front of the garden at 7:40. The car is running, but he doesn't move. He leans his head over the steering wheel and says something. Then he looks up. There's no fear or hesitation on his face. There's just a blankness. It's 7:49. He presses the pedal all the way down. Within seconds, the child's voice turns into a scream. The sound of metal, broken glass, dust from falling bodies rises into the air. People run, but it's too late. He doesn't seem to see anything. 5 people die. 3 are children. 12 are injured. When the car stops, he doesn't move. His fingers on the steering wheel are covered in blood. The policeman approaches, opens the door, but he doesn't look. He simply whispers, "They killed my son." His voice was quiet, but there was a lifetime of anger in it. The city fell silent. The footage spread. The news was full, and people were divided into two. Some said, "He was crazy." Others simply watched and remained silent. Because that sentence, "They killed my son," touched the hearts of some. The police caught him at the scene, but he didn't run, he didn't resist. He just sat down, closed his eyes and fell into a sleep he hadn't slept in years. When he was brought to the department, he didn't ask any questions. He was calm. When the inspectors asked why, he said one sentence: "I know, this won't bring me back, but now they feel the same pain." That night, in the interrogation room, he looked at the table and remained silent for a long time. Then suddenly, he folded his hands and whispered, "I'm not the only one to blame." During the investigation, the kindergarten administration, teachers, and even local government officials were interviewed and testified. Everyone was blaming someone else. But that father didn't say anything anymore. Once in a while, the cameras captured his face. There was a strange calm in his eyes, as if everything had been planned. Neighbors later said that a week ago he had advertised his house for sale. When someone asked him, "Where are you moving?" he didn't answer, simply saying "far away" to avoid questions. He had found that far away place, but where, no one knows yet. That night, the city was strangely silent. People did not go out into the streets. There was no sound of children laughing. Flowers and toys were laid out in front of the garden. Some were crying, some were praying. But the man's name was not mentioned anywhere. The official documents listed him as anonymous suspect. But everyone in the city knew who he was. Everyone knew that he had not gone crazy. He was just beyond endurance. A woman, his neighbor, later told a journalist, "I saw him that morning. He was so calm, but there was something in his eyes that made me close the door. It was as if he was no longer in this world." He was not really in this world, only his body was still here. Now, a few weeks after the incident, the garden has reopened. But no one there can laugh like before. Every morning, when parents bring their children in, they look away. Some still remember the last words he said: "They killed my son." That sentence remains on the walls of this city, as if the air seems to be breathless. The air is shaken by that sound every morning. Sirens, the mixed screams of people, the sound of an ambulance coming from afar. Dust, blood, and scattered toys along the street. A shoe is left alone on the curb. No one knows whose it was. Someone bends down to pick it up, but his hands tremble because the silent body next to him stops his movement. The police tape has not yet been removed. People are all around, each frozen, some crying, some just watching. When the cameras arrived, everyone already understood that something big was happening. In a short time, the street became a flood of people. The police set up control, but so many people had gathered that it was impossible to keep them away. A woman was loudly shouting her son's name. A policeman was trying to catch him. He seemed not to hear. His voice was tearing in his throat. A red balloon that had slipped from someone's hand and remained on the ground was slowly moving left and right in the air due to the wind. The car door was still open. The man inside was frozen, his head tilted to the side. His gaze was fixed on one point, as if his soul had left his body. The fear in his eyes had disappeared. No remorse, no pity, just silence. His lips were slightly parted, as if he were whispering something, but no sound came out. As the police approached, one reached for his gun, the other cautiously opened the door. The door opened with a single creak. He didn't move. It seemed he hadn't moved for a long time. He had uttered a single sentence, and everyone knew it by now. "They killed my son." A few minutes later, the entire area was cordoned off with police tape, ambulances, firefighters, reporters. There was a jumble of sounds in the air, sirens, cries, camera clicks. Under a tree on the side of the street, a police officer was trying to calm a young woman. The woman was sitting on the ground, her hands covered in blood. He was shaking someone's hand, but that hand was no longer moving. 2 hours after the incident, a strange silence fell over the city. There was no sound on the street, no traffic jams. Everyone was at home. The TVs were repeating the same news. Tragedy in front of a kindergarten in Jinhua. No one knew the full details of the incident, but the photos had already spread on the internet. The bloody sidewalk, the scattered toys, the crying parents. The image of that white sedan was on the TV screens. People watched, but they didn't understand. How could it be? The room in the basement of the police station was airless. There were metal cabinets along the wall, files on the table, and 2 investigators sitting behind them, and in the middle sat the man. His hands were still covered in blood. His clothes were covered in dust and broken glass. The policeman who brought him in had told them that he had not put up any resistance. He had simply fallen silent. One of the investigators smoked a cigarette. The other's eyes were on the photos on the table. He said quietly, "Why did you do it?" The man didn't nod. Because no one was listening. His voice seemed to come from inside, very deep, tired, but determined. "Who do you mean?" He slowly raised his eyes. His gaze was empty, but there was fire in it. All of them. The police looked at each other. One of the investigators approached the table, opened the file. Inside were photographs, incident reports, medical documents. The picture of the boy was on the top, a small child, smiling. Underneath it was the cause of death, dangerous allergic reaction, medical care not provided in time. Next to it were the statements of the teachers. No one had taken responsibility. The official verdict was natural. The investigator closed the file. "Do you think it was their fault?" The man smiled quietly. "Do you think my son deserved to die?" That evening, social media exploded in the city. One called him a barbarian, a criminal. Another called him father. Others wrote that this father drives people crazy. In a short time, the incident became famous throughout the country. Some called him a madman, others a hero. At that time, the police issued a press release. The crime was premeditated, but no one wanted to know how he had planned it. The man had left his job exactly a month before the incident. He had spent his last day quietly, not talking to anyone. When the files on his computer were examined, interesting details were found. His search history included entries such as safe distance, rail speed, kindergarten opening hours, and camera angles. He had planned everything step by step. Children's toys, photos, and clothes belonging to his son were found in closed boxes. In recent days, neighbors have seen him sitting in his car in the evenings. Sometimes the engine would run, but he wouldn't move. He would just stare, as if he were watching something that wasn't in front of him. He spent hours in the interrogation room, but he still didn't say a word. A psychologist wanted to see him. When the female psychologist entered the room, the man was sitting motionless. There was a glass of water on the table, but he hadn't drunk it. "Can you tell me your name?" the psychologist asked. "It's not necessary," the man said. "But we want to help you." He laughed a little. Before you could help, they were dead. The woman was silent for a moment, then said in a quiet voice, "Maybe this wasn't just revenge for you." He slowly raised his head, his eyes fixed on her face. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. After the incident in the city, everything changed in an instant. That kindergarten was closed. One of the teachers quit his job. Another left that city. Parents no longer sent their children to that kindergarten. The bloodstain on the side of the street took a long time to be erased. Every time people passed by that place, they felt something. Cold, uneasy, a kind of heaviness. The police patrolled there every day. Sometimes children would come up to him, bend down and pick up something from the ground. A toy, a broken glass, or just a stone. Then they would run away without looking. A week after the incident, one of the city's newspapers investigated his background. It turned out that he had previously worked as an engineer in a factory and had never committed a crime. His neighbors said he was a kind, quiet person. No one believed that he could have killed so many people, but the fact was there. 5 people dead, 12 wounded, 3 children, the same age as his son. One journalist wrote, "Sometimes the anger is so deep that a person no longer wants to replace himself, but God." This sentence was shared thousands of times on social media. People were divided in every corner. Some wrote that there is no trust in the justice system anymore. Others said he is just a criminal. But someone knew that this event was not just the breaking point of an individual, but of a society. The man did not speak to anyone during the interrogation. He would lie awake in his cell at night, staring at the ceiling. A police officer on night duty once heard him whisper something. "He is sleeping now too." A long silence followed, the sound of his breathing, the cold echo of the metal door. The camera in the cell recorded his movements. Every morning he would repeat the same thing. He would relive the memory of the last day he had spent with his son. He would run his hand across the table as if caressing someone. Every time this scene ended, he would say just one sentence. "You are now under protection, my son. No one can harm you." Before the investigation was over, a trial date was set. The city was once again filled with headlines. Avenging father. Jinhua tragedy. Justice or villainy. On the day of the trial, the hall was full. Journalists, parents, human rights activists. When he was brought in, there was a strange silence in the hall. No one moved. He neither tied his hands nor bowed his head. His gaze was straight ahead, as if he were looking at a point. He did not want to answer, even when the judge called his name. The charges were long: 5 deaths, 12 injuries, public danger, intentional homicide. But he seemed not to hear or listen to anything. The lawyer stood up and said in a quiet voice, "My client takes full responsibility, but he has been dead spiritually for a long time." There were whispers in the hall. The judge raised his eyes. "Do you mean that this is the work of a man who has lost his mind?" The lawyer bowed his head. "Yes, but think about who has lost his mind." There was a moment of silence in the hall. Everyone held their breath. The man could not take his eyes off the child for several seconds. Everything was hazy, as if the sounds were coming from afar, as if the world had suddenly slowed down. He made one move. He put his arms on the table and lowered his head. The judge was saying something. People were whispering, but he could no longer hear. For him, everything was over. He was no longer there. He could hear only one voice now, his son's voice. "Dad, come tonight. Bring me a game." And he knew he would never come again. The sound of the door opening and closing, the cold smell of iron, the distant footsteps. Everything was slowly disappearing. He looked up one last time, out the window in the hall. Sunlight filtered through the glass. Grains of dust danced in the air. For a moment, a smile returned to his face. Very weak, very little. Then he lowered his head again, and he whispered softly, "Now you are at peace, my child." Someone in the hall began to cry. The judge slammed his gavel. The sound echoed through the hall, as if frozen in time. The door closed, and the city was never the same again.